Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Think Big podcast. We are on episode 88. This is a phenomenal feed. Every time we come on here, what's crazy is we're breaking a personal record every time. I want to emphasize that because I'm a huge fan of consistency. I'm a huge fan of showing up, doing the thing on the good days, on the bad days. In fact, I think one of the misnomers and the misbeliefs is people think that every day has to be a good day. I would argue that your bad days are the best days if you show up because you're not breaking the compounding. It was Charlie Munger who said, if you understand compounding, the first rule of compounding is never break compounding unnecessarily. And so we have been compounding these episodes. We've been building up, and I'm excited. So shout out to the people who have been showing up consistently. Love that Josh and Laura are already in the chat. They've already shown up. We got Jade in the chat. And I'm excited for tonight's episode because we're going in. We're going to be talking about a pretty important topic. We're all real estate investors, and this might be odd for people to hear, but we're going to be talking about why you should not, right? Keyword not, be buying rentals. And really some of the things that your favorite gurus will never say to you because they don't make money off of you believing otherwise. So I'm excited about this episode. But before we get into it, Alejandro and Sam, how you guys feeling?
Feeling phenomenal, brother. Nice to hang out with you guys.
I missed you guys. I freaking missed you guys. I was so bummed that I couldn't be here last week. It was my kid brother's birthday. But absolutely, Alejandro decided to show up as normally he shows up as like Bruce Wayne or Batman, got something with dark and mysterious vibes. Today he's like Batman but on vacation. Batman but tropical, right?
This is Batman went to Fiji.
Exactly. Batman needed a day off.
Hey, bro, it's 101 degrees in Texas, bro. It was meant to be today.
I feel you. But no, man, I'm excited to be back, and I love episodes where we, mainly me, get to piss people off. I love it because I think that what we're going to talk about today is the stuff that people need to hear, not what they want to hear. And I think for a lot of people, it's going to reaffirm something that they may have been speculating in the back of their brain. I think that we're also going to tick off a lot of people who are influencers, who are trying to be influencers, and who use buying rentals as like their credibility package for why you should listen to them. And the reality is we know so many, I'm going to say this, guys, Marlon, Alejandro, you and I, we all know so many people who are kind of like us, are coming up and they have rental properties and they're risky. And we know behind the scenes of what's actually happening. And we know they should probably not be buying properties. And the dangerous thing is they're setting precedences for the people that listen to them, to their audience base. And then what ends up happening is there's this irresponsible kind of thing happening in the world. And we see this because we're leaders in the communities that we're in. We see the fallout. We see the fallout of when the wrong people buy deals, right? Or could be the right people. I think everyone should buy deals at some point. Or when the right people buy deals at the wrong time. So I'm going to hit on this, guys. First things first. Okay, and I actually greatly admire guys like Ryan Pineda for being very upfront about this. Let's start with this. Alejandro.
Yes, sir.
Should everyone at some point get into the point where they are buying rental properties and build a portfolio?
At some point, yeah. At some point.
Okay, amazing. Should newbies, and I'm going to say this right now, should newbies be buying rental properties right off the bat?
No, absolutely not.
Marlon.
Bro, you know what's funny? I just texted a buddy of mine literally last night. And like I would, if it weren't going to expose him, I would show you the text thread. But I literally said to him, I said, "Are you about to buy a property?" He goes, "No." I'm like, "Are you lying to me? Because I heard a rumor that you're about to buy a deal and you have no business buying a property right now. Zero business buying a property because I know where you're at in life. I know where you're at in your business. You have zero business buying a property right now." So no, newbies should not buy a property. And even if you're a newbie, you shouldn't buy a property before the proper things have been put in place.
Yeah, so let's do this. Okay, we're going to hit on, guys, there is a time. We're going to talk about when you should start buying properties, the types of properties you should buy, the types of deals, because rental properties are different, right? Like a single family home, that's a traditional buy and hold versus a investor loan versus a sub two versus a seller finance versus a hybrid. They're all different and they all have different ramifications and consequences. And there's a different level of investor, a different level of season that you need to be in for you to get them. I'll say this, guys. You are new, okay? And you do not make money with active income. And I mean a good amount of it. I'm not talking about like 50 grand a year. You're doing 50 grand a year. Trust me, that is not enough to be buying rental properties, especially if it's at a W-2, especially if you're living off the other expenses with your household and things like that. Alejandro, what active income number should people be making before they start getting into the world of thinking about buying rentals?
I would say at least 3 times the amount it costs to run the rental, at least.
Okay, I like that. I like that. So you're saying on the basis of buying a rental property, whatever it costs to run it, you should be making at least 3 times all the hard expenses, maybe the PML fees, all that kind of good stuff. Okay, I like that answer. That's a very contextual answer. I wasn't expecting that. Marlon, what about you? Do you have like a general barometer of like, hey, unless you're making this amount of money a year, you shouldn't even be thinking about taking on rental properties?
Yeah, I go from a standpoint of having a long enough runway and having a big enough war chest. So I like to go from the standpoint of, do you have 6 months of all your costs and expenses saved up? And if you have that sort of runway, then you can officially buy yourself enough time to make everything work. But if you don't have that 6-month runway, then it's not the right time. You still need to be in your active income, creating and saving.
Yep.
So when you say a 6-month runway, I want to be very applied here. Is that 6 months for you and your household that you live in with your wife and your kids, or is that 6 months of that plus the rental that you're trying to buy?
It would be 6 months of all your expenses that are associated with you and your life. So in this case, if you're looking at bringing in your first rental, it should be 6 months of being able to cover your own personal mortgage as well as the mortgage of the property if, God forbid, your tenants decide to not pay. Now, it's only going to be for the first property. It's not going to be for your entire portfolio because, quite frankly, no one or very few people are ever going to have that big of a war chest. But for getting started, you want to be able to put yourself in that position because it will allow you to weather the inevitable storm. So I'm a big believer. And also, people know my personality type. As an investor, I am way more conservative than most people are, but I'm looking at it from a long game.
Got you. Okay. So here's where I personally stand on this, guys. I'm a little bit more I would say it's not that I actually don't even view this as conservative. I view this as aggressive because my thing is this: when I get into a new form of investing, I don't want to like dabble in it. I want to freaking conquer it. And I can't conquer it if I'm playing the dabbling game. So like, I love these answers. They're good, solid, conservative answers that you can't go wrong with. Me, I like to actually flip it a little bit upside down even more. And that's that I don't even think you should be entertaining the idea of buying rentals, especially if you are using other people's money. Okay, it's one thing to be, using your own money for the down payments, your own money for the entry fees on creative finance deals. Like that's all well and good, right? But the reality is, in today's day and age, 99.9% of people who are trying to buy rental properties are doing it with OPM, as they should, in my opinion. It's leverage. It makes sense to me. But the second that you do that, I don't think it's enough to have 6 months. I actually personally don't agree with that. I think you should be making at least $250,000 a year in active income. The reason why is that this 6 months of mortgages, that's good, right? Let's just say that's 12 to 15 grand, right? But depending on the type of deal, okay? Now, if it's a traditional investor loan, the deal is safe and it's in your name and this, that, and the other, and you have it at a significant wedge underneath market value and you've got good space on your rent, that's fine. But the reality is the majority of people that we talk to, newbies, are not buying those deals. They're buying riskier deals, okay? And there is a truth that, yes, we buy rental properties. It matters. It's good. But buying rentals is all a game of risk tolerance. That's all it is. And I want to start highlighting, because this is stuff that people don't really talk to you about. Guys, let's list off some things that inevitably will go wrong when you own rental properties. Marlon, can you give me a few, just like you own properties, what type of, crap happens at properties that like cause problems?
100%. When you're buying rental properties, something to consider, especially if you're buying older assets, older properties, you are going to have maintenance issues. That's just a given. It's kind of like driving a car and expecting to not have to do an oil change or expecting your tire to never blow out. These are just normal wear and tear. The older the home, the more wear and tear that's going to be on the property. So you're going to have issues like roof issues, you're going to have animals, you're going to have blown out windows, you're going to have doors breaking, locks breaking. These things are absolutely inevitable. If they weren't, you wouldn't have contractors who make an entire career off of fixing things, right? Like things have to break in order for somebody to make a career off of fixing it. You're going to have vacancies. That means at some point, one of your tenants will move out. A home of units going to be vacant. A house is going to be vacant, and you will not be collecting rent, but your expenses will stay on. You will be responsible for making those sort of payments, regardless of if you're renting or not. That's inevitable. You are going to have problem tenants. You will eventually have to evict. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. If you are owning multiple properties and you're planning on growing a portfolio, at some point, sooner or later, you will eventually have to evict somebody. It is inevitable. The only way I see you never having to evict somebody is if literally maybe you own one property and you have a person who's like a lifelong tenant inside there, in which case you're not even really a real estate investor and you're probably not listening to us. You're just a dude with a house. Big difference. From another standpoint, you are going to run into issues with contractors screwing you over where you do everything right. You go about getting the proper work order. You go about bringing them in timely fashion. You tell them exactly what you need done. They agree to do it. You make sure things are paid, and you're going to find that they just simply did not do the work that you asked to do, or they did not do it well enough. These things are inevitable. And everything I mentioned, you should have been hearing like the sound of a cash register opening and money flying out, because all of these things are going to cost you money. They're going to cost you money. So those are some of the things to be aware of.
I love this. Okay, guys, and I want to paint this for you. Okay, this has happened to all of us. Marlon, when you and I go to Vegas, you and I stay at this house that I own. That house is now crushing it. Okay, that house is doing well now. That one house, Marlon, funny enough, like everything that you listed off, we've had to deal with. I had to evict a felon out of that. Okay, and that was like a tough thing to like navigate an eviction, never having done one before. I had to navigate evicting a felon who wasn't just like not paying, they were threatening to kill everybody. Okay, that's a big deal. Okay, we'd evict someone. We had a ton of rehab that needed to happen. To Marlon's point, I was an idiot. I got cheap and tried to go with like the guy that I thought I could afford and I thought would just do the work fine. Everything was done wrong. Everything was done wrong. Everything that we paid our initial GC to do, we had to go back and redo almost all of it. Okay. And then to Marlon's point, vacancy, not being able to fill the property. I put the property online with someone who is a friend. I love them. They run midterm rentals and short-term rentals. I said, hey, I need you to put this on. I need you to get this filled. Like, we're going to design it, furnish it. It's going to look beautiful. We're going to get great photos. I need you to just put, people in it so we make money. Okay. So we're handing off management to a trusted operator, which is something that we recommend everyone does, right? Because when you're a newbie and you're getting your first property, trust me, you don't know how to manage property. Call in a property management company that's good. I made the mistake of like just using someone who is a friend. I think they crush, but they may not have crushed in that market before. So it might have been a new market for them. I don't know. And because it was a friend, I had that person running this property for months. And for months, we didn't make money on it. I'm still paying mortgage, PML, right? Our private money fees, our holding costs, all the things, everything, the lawn care, the pool, so the pool doesn't turn green, all of it, right? We're still paying every single month, no matter what. A couple months go by and no money. And then we finally get the right team in to bring it on, right? They revamp everything. They make all the final touches that we need to do. We're about to go live literally within the first day of going live with this new team. You know what happened? Something that Marlon didn't mention. Property got broken into in the middle of the night. In the middle of the night, the property gets broken into. And so then we have a massive security issue. And now what do we have to do? We have to go and install security cameras. We have to go do all of these things to try to figure out, hey, hopefully this doesn't happen again. After all of that, the property is stabilized, performing, and doing well from an underwriting perspective. When we underwrote the deal, and it was a safe deal, everything like the underwriting that I did to buy the deal, I could just throw out the freaking window. Because by the time we were all said and done, we were massively over budget. We were massively over our time frame. But the key, I'm telling you guys this right now, the only reason that I could sustain it is because we were making a ton of money in my other businesses. It was not a problem to go 2, 3, 4 months and not have a tenant in place, or to have things being broken into, or to weather the storm of an eviction with a felon who was threatening to murder everybody. We could weather the storm because we had the money to. I'm be honest right now, it was more than 6 months of like expenses. It was a lot more, right? Because we have to redo GC work. We have to redo furnishing. We have to do all of these things that come into play. And so, guys, I'm a general advocate of focus on building your active business first, your active income, whether that's a W-2 when you're a doctor, whether that's you're being a wholesaler or a fix and flipper, or you sell online courses. Like, I don't care, whatever it is, whatever you do for active income, I'm a huge advocate of overdoing it.
Well, you know what's funny, Sam? Last week when we were here, I was talking about the bucket system again. And you remember how the bucket system, at the top of the bucket system, there's a single bucket, and that's your active income bucket. And if people paid attention to last week's episode, those last 10 minutes, you guys go back, watch last week's episode 87, and scroll to the last 50 minutes of that episode, you'll see that we talk about this bucket system, and we talk about your active income bucket at the top is what affords you the ability to even be able to purchase these assets, but also hold on to the asset. Everyone tells the fairy tale of once you buy the property, passive income, mailbox money, right? You hear that term all the time, mailbox money. You're going to get checks in the mail. You don't need to do anything else. But what they don't tell you is that mailbox money, it's going to waver. And if you cannot withstand that storm, we just recently, you and I, all three of us, we have a good friend in real estate who has been very actively on social media showcasing his deals. He's been bringing lenders out to the properties. He's been bringing people out to come hang out. Awesome stuff, and really proud of him. He's doing a good job. He made a post a few weeks ago saying, hey, I actually needed to back out of a deal for the first time in a long time, had to leave my earnest money deposit in, and I couldn't buy this deal. He said the reason being, I've got these other 9 units currently that are all vacant, and we still have to make the mortgage payments. Now, thankfully, he's doing what you've done, or he's done what you're saying. He's built up a good stream of active income over here on this side, right? Like, so his left hand is holding the assets, but his right hand is still working in the dirt, still making active income come in through just going out and making deals happen and transacting and making money. And he said, but this is costing me literally over $10,000 a month in just mortgage payments. Just mortgage payments I have to cover because these units have been vacant since April. Like, wow.
And wow. So April, that's crazy. So, and here's what I want to hit, guys. Right. And Marlon, I think, and yeah, Richard Knowles is absolutely right. Like, I always tell Marlon that, like, Marlon always looks amazing regardless, but I've been telling him for a long time. I'm like, dude, grow out your hair, do something with it. Cause like, once you do that, it's game over for every other man on earth. And I think he's deciding it's time for it to be over for every other man.
Bro, it's
time.
We got the videos to make. We got things to do.
There you go. And that's another thing. So I think I know who you're talking about. And I want to hit on something with that person specifically. They were buying a lot of their properties, to my understanding, in an area that was very seasonal. So here's something that we haven't talked about. Guys, if you buy, my number one market is Las Vegas. I love the Las Vegas market. I've got it so built out. Like, you go to Las Vegas, like, that's like my playground for buying properties. Now, we buy in a ton of other markets too. Why am I afraid of the Vegas market? You know, as just a general rule, why do I want to buy in other markets outside of it? Because during the summer, Las Vegas market, it's freaking 120 degrees, right? And so it's hot. And so I don't do short-term rental. It's not a thing. Like, we'll utilize it every now and then, but like, it's something that I don't care about doing. I do midterm, and we just amplify midterm rentals to combat seasonality. All of these things play a part, right? And then, Marlon, to your point, you know, if you've got 9, 10 properties that you're just hemorrhaging money on, here's the reality, guys. Like, that person is doing it right by making sure the bills are paid, by making sure the mortgages are paid, because there's sellers on the line if it's a subject to transaction, right? Who sold you the property and the mortgage is on their name. You owe it to them to not forsake them. You owe it to your private money lenders to not forsake them. And the key with this person is they have enough active income to weather the storm. And I think it's probably going to be a good learning lesson for this person to maybe slow it down and not just keep adding and adding and adding and buy 20 properties. Guys, I'm telling you right now, every time I see someone who is newer to not just the game, but newer to buying properties, If I see them buy 20 properties in 6 months, I just know within the next 12 months, something is gonna break because it's the game of scaling. I'm good at scaling businesses. Guys, there is a truth to scaling rental properties the wrong way.
Dude, it's funny. I have not yet successfully seen a single person buy a lot of properties in a short period of time at the early onset of their career and have it turn out well. Now, in the long run, I think it turns out well because the music's not over until the music's over. And I think, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, they learn so many valuable lessons from having scraped their face against the cement. However, in this stage, I mean, I literally know an investor last year, and you and I were actually just talking about him the other day in another aspect. All good things. He's a good friend of both of ours, but he had bought way too many properties in such a short period of time using all OPM and then got totally messed over by his contractors and was left holding the bag responsible for all these properties and literally zero bit of active income coming in to be able to take care of the situation, and was just put into a really bad situation where, I mean, these are fire sale situations that now not only is he himself in a bad situation, his investors are in a bad situation. And it's all because doing things out of order. He might be doing the right things, but doing it out of sequence matters. Sequence matters.
And
Doing
dude,
what Sam is saying matters.
I'm so sorry. That's so good, dude. I love the way, guys, this is why I hang out with Marlon Johnson. Marlon just says things, things that but there's people that they'll say things that but the way they say it just lands. I'm so sorry. Continue.
Bro, no, but also shout out to John and Richard. I love that John and Richard are about to go squat up over in California, over in OC, and they're about to go support our boy Ryan Scrope. Shout out to Ryan, freaking phenomenal dude.
Got to hang out with Lord Hermosi for a day. That's kind of
I know, dude. He put in the work. He's been building up his community. He's one of those people that's very I love Ryan. I love the dude. I love his work ethic. I love his execution. I love his straightforwardness. Just gangster human being. Gangster human being.
A little, and I want to get back on this, but a little thing about, because Ryan and I we've developed an amazing, I think, friendship very recently here. One thing that I love about Ryan, he does, I would say, more than 99% of people that I've met, dude, he does what you advocate for, and he puts his hands in the freaking dirt. He has his hands in the dirt. He just does the damn work. He doesn't overthink it. So I love that about him. But Marlon, all these things, right? You've got mortgages, right? If you're in Phoenix, right? I want to buy in Phoenix. My thing about Phoenix is I will never do STR in Phoenix because I know half the year or a quarter of the year, you will not make money. And then any money that you do make in Q4 or Q1, where it's nice and okay, guess what? You're not profiting anything because that's just going to stabilize the losses during the middle of the year. So Marlon, you own property. I own property. This is something that I've noticed. Do you buy property? Do you get cash flow to actually make money and sustain your cost of living? Be honest here.
No, are you asking, am I living off the cash flow from my properties?
Yeah. Have you actually taken money from your rental to
No.
spend on shit?
No, I think I took maybe $100 at one point to go get a haircut. But in all actuality, no, the rental properties I have, and I've got a portfolio now of about 24 doors. With the rental income coming in from the properties, it's minimal. I mean, at the end of the day, it nets probably around $6,000 after all expenses coming in per month with all the doors all together, all combined, which, that's not nothing. I'm not going to say that it's nothing, but it's not enough to sustain lifestyle. I mean, if you think about that, what is that? $6,000 a month? That's $66,000 or $72,000 a year. So it's still a pretty low salary, all things considered, with inflation and the cost of living and where I live. And so that's net. That's if everything works out. There are months where we do have vacancies, right? And immediately, not only am I'm not just losing the cash flow, I still have to pay the mortgage. So it's right. A loss on a rental property is not just, oh, well, you didn't make the $400 you were supposed to make this month. It's no, you just lost $1,800. You just lost, 3.5 months, 4 months of rent in 1 month. Holy crap. It's a pretty interesting game. I will say there's benefits and we'll talk about some of the benefits later, but these are things that you have to consider to protect yourself and not be one of those people that when someone asks you later on, like when your kids or your nephew or your uncle or your neighbors say like, hey, should I get into real estate? You're not that person telling them, dude, real estate ruined me. We want to help you so real estate doesn't ruin you, but you've got to do it in sequence.
Dude, I love this. I love this. And to your point, I want people to actually like realize this. People are like, oh my God, that long-term rental will make $500 a month. Huge. It's amazing, right? Guys, look at that. Annualize that. 500 a month of profit, right? Cash flow, 6,000 a year. One HVAC system blows. Done. Your entire year of profit is gone. This is one thing about me that I've realized this, boys. I am sick, and I'm personally sick and tired. I think real estate can give you an element of financial freedom. I think it can provide you financial. I don't even like the term financial freedom. I really don't. I like financial foundations. I like that. I think it gives you, it's an entry gateway drug into business, into doing things a little bit more effectively and learning how to build things properly. But I would say I am very much against people looking at rental cash flow as what's going to substitute, like, you know, every expense they've ever had. You know, like for the people who are very old school and traditional and they only do long-term rental, love y'all. You know how many freaking rentals you'd have to own to live and sustain a family and travel and like having a nice quality of life and being like financially free and financially comfortable? Like that's the thing. It's financial comfortability. That's not going to come from cash flow. Now you could be like, Sam, well, I'm going to do short-term rental and make $3,000 a month. Guys, I know short-term rental guys who 1 month they're doing $85,000 a month. The next month they're literally losing money. So volatile. And then you're in my city, Las Vegas. Love it. STR is almost completely banned. It's like not possible to run it there. It's like it's almost impossible to succeed with STR there unless you're like one of like 100 license holders. So,
you want to hear something funny? There, and maybe I shouldn't be introducing this right now. And this, I think we're having a conversation right now, so it's cool. There's a strategy of buying properties that I love and using it with long-term rentals that can create the lifestyle people are wanting to create and the passive income that they want to create. But to your point, it comes as a result of doing the active income stuff first. And we actually know a really good buddy of ours, a good friend of ours who just reached out to, I think, both of us recently to come speak at one of his events up in the Midwest. And he buys all of his rental properties cash, because he's got a massive wholesale operation and a massive fix and flip operation. And it's actually because of religious reasons that he doesn't ever take out loans on a property, because his religion, they don't do interest at all. And so he can't actually have debt on his property. But because of that, he's able to have a small portfolio that is netting and bringing in, you know, close to 20 grand after taxes and insurance to his cash flow, which is, hey, that's a big difference. You're now looking at a $240,000 a year salary from, you know, a small portfolio of property. Absolutely insane. And that's something that people don't think about that can be done. So, I mean, I use leverage. I use debt to get into my properties, and awesome. This is where I learned that I'll still use debt because I get amazing ROIs and I run my calculations, but I realized I cannot turn off my active income as quickly as I thought I would be able to with having the portfolio I have. I thought I'd be able to, like, oh, cool. Once I get to 20 doors, I could shut off active income. I could just screw off and do whatever I want. And not the case. I have to keep the active income going longer, and I have to strategize better. But I am grateful because it broke me in. It was an entry drug. But, you know, let's continue this conversation because I like this, man. I really enjoy this topic because I wish somebody put it into my perspective this way at the very beginning. I would have done things a little bit different, and I'm not upset about the way I did things, but it's cool to see a higher level perspective.
Well, it's an experience perspective, right? The reality is if I was a guru and a coach, I couldn't tell you all this because then I couldn't sell you a program. I mean, that's just it. And I'll say this, man, it's interesting because I'm at a point now where, for me, and I think for a lot of people want financial freedom, right? I think financial freedom is a result of you learning how the money game works outside of just putting a tenant in a house. I think that there is so much at sway with real estate, right? Interest rates rising or decreasing, the political atmosphere, right? If you're in the game and your entire business is dependent on short-term rentals and you try and go play ball in Vegas, like, it's just a matter of time before you get cracked down and fined. I literally have an investor who hit me up maybe like a month or two ago, and this investor was trying to flash sale their property in Vegas. And the reason why, they were illegally running it as a short-term rental. They got slapped with a $200,000 fine by the city of Vegas. And the city, like literally, I think is putting a lien on their property. Like they're going to get their money. They're going to get their money or foreclose or whatever. So I'm a huge advocate of everyone owning property and having it as like a safety net, because there's a long-term massive benefit to what, it's known as principal pay down and long-term appreciation. You mix those two things, you have this amazing safety net, right? And then your cash flow that you're getting day one, to me, is irrelevant, right? The cash flow that you get in 10 years, that has stacked up so much because you had principal pay down, you have you paid out your private money lenders, you've paid out any debts that you have on the property, and now each property, everything that you're getting is pure profit, right? It's pure profit. My big thing is this, guys. Focus on your active income for the first 2 to 3 years. Truly, I'm pouring this into you, because every time I meet someone, guys, and I want to hit on this. You know what? Actually, because we don't have a ton of time left, I want to get into this because this is the spicy part. Marlon, Alejandro, does equity matter?
I hope this isn't a trick question, because my answer is absolutely equity matters.
Equity, okay. Alejandro, for everyone, let's be honest, even for us, where we're making money, does equity matter?
Hey, I'm gonna go with yes. If it's for me specifically, the type of lifestyle I want, yes, equity does matter.
I'm gonna tell you guys right now. Remember that property that's been an absolute nightmare for such a long time? The saving grace of that property, even if I didn't make the money I do in active income with wholesale and all the other things that I'm doing, I still would have kept that property. Why? Because when I purchased it, I had about $150,000 of baked in equity. And the equity was my safety net, right? So the reality is, why do I want you guys to be making 200, 300, 400, however much money in active income? That's your safety net. That's your weather the storm money, right? Let's just say you don't have that. Then you should have a safety net. That safety net should be equity. The danger point is when I see people forego the equity and they forego the active income and they have zero safety nets. And basically, unless this property performs on midterm, short term, whatever the heck they're doing, unless it's just like by the grace of God, everything aligns, unless that happens, they're completely screwed. And we see this, guys, in the communities that we're in, because people join and they go gung-ho and they're like, yeah, cool, I'm just going to go and take on this property that has basically no equity whatsoever, right? No equity whatsoever. They are not making a ton of money. Maybe they're an engineer. Maybe they're a doctor. Maybe not making a ton. They just have a normal kind of good salary even, but they got a wife and kids, right? They have a house to pay off on their own. And then what ends up happening is, oh, you comped the property wrong. Oh, the GC screwed up. Oh, the little subdivision I'm in, the HOA is cracking down and the HOA is on my ass and they won't let me rent it out the way that I want to rent it out. Now what? Right? Sorry if you guys hear that. Like my dogs are like,
bro, it sounds like you got a cat in the house.
Dude, that is I actually know that's Daisy. That's the border collie for sure. Actually, that might be the wolf dog. That's probably the wolf dog. So
real quick though, like because on that point with equity, and I know we are living in like the time where everyone's talking about creative financing and people feel like these are new strategies. First off, creative financing has been around forever. It's not a new strategy. And although creative financing is an amazing tool, shout out to the creative financing heroes and homies like Pace, like absolutely rock star of a human being. If you're ever going to do a creative finance deal, go learn from him how to do it properly. But equity is king. At the end of the day, equity is king. Being able to buy something at 40, 50, and 60 cents on the dollar will always be my go-to strategy no matter what, because equity gives you options. In fact, I sat down and Sam was there. Sam came out to the last mastermind I hosted here in Arizona, and we brought out Zachary Keeps, who is the #1 investor in Arizona. He is the largest owner of single-family homes in Arizona as a single owner. He doesn't share these and partner with anybody on these properties. And he's the #1 buyer on InvestorLift. So the data shows that if there was a scoreboard, this dude is #1 and he's the homie. Zachary Keeps, shout out to you, bro. And Zachary sat down and he explained his investing strategy, because what a lot of people don't know about Zach is before real estate, he was a Wall Street dude. This guy understands finances. He understands money. And he talks about how even if the only time to ever buy a non-cash flowing asset or a negative cash flowing asset is if you're able to get it at a price where you have so much equity that it makes sense that, hey, you know what, even if I'm losing $100 a month or $500 a month, and that equates into a $6,000 loss annually, if I'm sitting on $200,000 of equity, not like, hey, I got 10 grand of equity, I'm talking large pools of equity. He's like, I will take a deal like that all day long. One, because the depreciation will allow me to do so much more, but also because if I ever needed to access my capital, I can simply list that property on the market, sell it at a discounted price. So it doesn't matter even if people aren't buying, everyone buys a deal. And if I'm coming in at 95% of market value, I'm the cheapest house in the market. People are buying my house because at the end of the day, people still have to buy homes. He's like, I will gladly pay $6,000 a year to have access to 200 grand whenever I need it. Holy moly. You don't get that with no equity deals. You don't get that buying non-cash flowing creative deals. You don't get that any other way besides having and owning equity. These are the things you have to think about when you're buying property. Like if you're going to play this game, you got to play it right. You've got to set yourself up with rules beforehand so that you don't get yourself into bad situations because you're playing the game emotionally, trying to keep up with the idea of what everyone else is doing, not even the reality of what they're doing. You're trying to keep up with the vision that they're portraying on social media. Just want to throw that out there.
Dude, this is huge. It's something that no one talks about, right? And I don't want to hit on this, right? So it's like there's traditional loans, traditional investor loans where, you're putting down 20%, and people hate that because they want to get into money. You want to get into deals with nothing down, right? But that 20% gives you an equity stake. It's what it does, right? And the reality is then there's seller finance deals where you may not have a ton of equity depending on what you negotiate with the seller. Now there's these big things, right? And I love them. I own them. I think they're great. We have sub 2 deals. Okay. Sub 2 deals are deals that effectively you're taking over someone else's mortgage. And more often than not with sub 2 deals, there is little to no equity. Okay. Here's what I want to hit on, guys. Marlon, has a lender, do lenders ever change their mind? Do lenders ever something comes up in their life and they're like, hey, I know I gave you 50 grand. I need that back. Like my kid just broke their leg or something happened.
Dude, all day long. In fact, we have a lot of friends, I'm realizing. Another one of our friends who's out of Atlanta had this happen recently. And I even hit him up because he's got his portfolio. He's got about, 60 units to his portfolio. And he's been out of that space of buying active real estate, and he's doing some other stuff right now. But then I saw the other day, I'm like, hey, dude, you're doing a deal. What's going on right now? And he goes, one of my lenders who's supposed to be in this deal for another 18 months had a midlife crisis and decided they want their money back. And rather than argue with them, I'm just going to go make some active income real quick and pay them off. I freaking loved that answer. I was like, yeah, why are you wholesaling a deal right now? I was like, I haven't seen you wholesale. Or he was flipping a deal. I was like, why are you flipping a deal right now? It's like, I thought you were done with that. He's like, yeah, I just want to pay off my lender real quick. Like, we're in the middle of another project. I have this skill set. I have all my stuff. And so, yes, to answer your question, Sam, we have private money lenders, right? And we're not talking about banks. When he says lenders, we're not talking about the Wells Fargos and the Chases. We're talking about private money lenders, mom and pop lenders, people lending out of their self-directed IRAs, people lending out of their bank accounts. Those people, they may sign a contract with you and say that they're in a deal for 12 months. They may say they're in a deal for 24 months. They may say whatever. But then when they freak out and they panic, or a life situation happens, or their kid needs new braces and they ask for their money back, the last thing you want to do is sit there and have an argument with them and force them to stay in a deal that their human emotions are now telling them to get out of. You got to be ready to switch. You got to be ready to move. And if you've got active income coming in, it's not going to stress you out that you've got to temporarily park your own money in while you find time to replace them.
Also, not just active income, guys. See how the answer to that problem, that's a real problem. It will happen. The answer to that problem is having the active income skill set. If you're making $250,000 a year, right, you're not spending all that. I mean, you shouldn't be spending all that. I don't spend that much money at all. I live like a brokey. The reality is, if any of my lenders come to me and they say, hey, Sam, I need my 50 grand back. I need my 60 grand back. Cool. Give me 2 weeks and let me just sell the deal and then we're going to be good to go. And even if I didn't have that active skill set, right? Remember, there's two big hedges. There's the active income where you have a refined skill set where you can make a ton of money. That is a hedge against volatility in the marketplace and your lenders backing out and stupid stuff happening. The other hedge that I mentioned earlier, what was it? Equity. And if you have a deal that has a ton of equity, like it's all good because you could always just refinance. The rate might kill you, right? Or you could always refinance, bring another lender in and secure the new lender on the equity, and it's safe for them too. Equity is a safety net, right? My perfect world, I'm chasing both. I'm chasing active income as a safety net. I'm like a trapeze artist, right? You know, doing like crazy stuff on a tightrope super high, trying to become a billionaire. I'm not just trying to burn every bridge along the way. I want a safety net. That first safety net is my skill set, my ability to make as much money as humanly possible in active income. And if that should fail, right? If I get knocked out into a coma or something happens, I don't know, something happens and I can't fulfill on my ability to run an active income machine, what's going to end up happening then is that if all my properties are sitting on 20, 30, 40% of equity, I'm going to be good all day. And that's how you got to focus on real estate, guys. So I'm not saying you don't buy subject to properties. I think you should. And I think for a lot of you guys, it may be the right answer because you may not be creditable, right? You may want to buy a property without credit or credentials. That may be your route to go. And that's great. But the thing is, don't buy a no equity sub 2 deal where you have no equity in the deal itself. You're using 30, 40, 50, 60K of someone else's money, right? Even if it's in a secure second position or third position or whatever, if there's no equity, it's not secured. It doesn't matter. I was talking to Abraham Gray, who's a great friend of all of ours. And it's funny. He's like, I don't care what position it's in. If there's no equity, there's no equity. It doesn't really matter. That's just the way it is.
The truth.
It doesn't matter what position you're in. And so don't buy a deal that has no equity and then raise other people's money, putting other people's livelihoods on the line. If you can't sustain it, if you can't pay the bill once it comes due, assuming it comes due. And moving forward, I'm at the game, man, where it's like, I'm not staying away from subject to deals. we're still going crazy on them. But it's like for every sub 2 deal I buy, dude, I want to buy a seller finance deal. And why seller finance, guys? This is super high level. We don't have the time to get into this. Why seller finance? Why do I care about those specifically? Guys, do you guys have a guess of why do I love seller finance deals?
Why you like sell like pure seller finance deals?
Seller finance, or like it's a hybrid where there's a ton of seller financing involved. Why do I love those deals?
I'm gonna let Alejandro get it.
Well, I can think of one. You know, I mean, there's many reasons why you would love to get seller finance deals, but one of them, for example, is like one of the deals I have right now that I think I owe like 50 grand to the seller, and that house has roughly maybe 60 grand of equity. And I offer him to pay him off for $14,000, and he took it, which means I now acquired some additional equity on that deal. That's why I love seller finance.
Dude, okay. One, Brandon, thank you, dude. Thank you for, right, Marlon said the right sequence. Spent time building the active income, crushing it in wholesale. Now it's time to get into rental properties. And I'm glad that he said B class, right? I'm kind of agnostic. I don't think you should buy in like D class just because you're going to run into like your house getting broken into all the time. But B class, why? Safer neighborhoods, 100K plus in equity. Great. Is he going to buy a deal every week? No, but I can almost guarantee every deal he buys is probably going to be a banger if it meets those classifications. So shout out to you, dude. But this is it. Simon says you can negotiate with the seller. Alejandro's completely on point. This deal, okay? I owed the seller $95,000. Okay, me and the seller, great terms. It's a hybrid deal, half sub 2, half seller finance. On the seller finance, I owe him 95 grand, and we still have a lot of equity. We're good to go. He hits me up a few months ago and says, "Hey Sam, how much do you guys owe me?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I'll find out exactly how much." He's like, "Yeah, because it's just some things are happening right now. Do you think you can? I would love to be able to get that money up front." I'm like, "Hey, total transparency. We've owned the property for like a year, so we've not made enough money to pay you, whatever it was, like 95 grand." Eventually find out, what he wanted, or how, like what we owed him was about 95,000. And I tell him like, "Hey, openly, this is how much like I owe you based on like the note that we have on the timeline." And that seller finance note, guys, was on a 30-year note. I'm like tragic that he wants to call this due because I'm like, I got 30 years left, right? but I want to be a great person. So I'm like, okay, you know what? But I want to be a closer. So I'm like, hey man, what's going on in your life? What do you need? How much? Like, I owe you 95, but like, let's be reasonable here because I have to pull it from somewhere else. I have to go wholesale a property, flip a property. I got to go do some OnlyFans. I don't know. I got to do something to make you this money, right? And I was shocked, guys. Guys, I owed him 95. How much do you think we ended up settling for? How much do you think he
19?
asked for? 19. What do you think? What do you think was his number, Alejandro? That he hit me with, his first number.
10,000.
Ooh, spot on. He says, I owe him I told him 4 minutes prior, I owe you 95 grand. And he says, Sam, I was on the phone. This is a sales thing, guys. This is why you never say your number first, because you could have been wrong. I thought we were going to settle for 40, 50, 60K, right? And that's still a good deal for me. He said, Sam, if you can wire me $10,000 in the next week, I'd be really happy. We settled for 12. I just gave him the extra 2 grand just to be nice. And then, oh my God. So my 95 that I owed him, right? We settled for 12. What does that do to my equity, my potential equity? 73, if I'm doing math correctly, about $73,000 in new equity, just like that.
Yep.
Guys, you can't do that with Wells Fargo. You can't do that with Bank of America, with Pulte Mortgage. You can only do that type of stuff on seller finance notes. And what was crazy is no one has ever talked to me about this. Before this happening to me, none of my mentors had ever mentioned that this is like a possibility. You should do this. You could do this. Like, it made sense in theory, but no one had ever like put it in front of me. A former guest of the Origin Story podcast, literally the next day, I saw a reel from our good friend Alex Quezada, who is a phenom. If you guys don't follow social media, it's amazing. He just drops so much high level game on there. It's amazing. It's why he's blowing up in such a big way. He posts this reel about like, hey, every 4 months, it's like an SOP in his business
Call them up.
to go talk to every seller that they have a note with. And then he calls them up and just says, hey, we just closed a deal, a flip or a wholesale. We got 40K. I know I owe you whatever I owe you. Would you be willing to settle? And then just by doing that every time, every 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, he just increases his equity just like that effectively for free. And then the cool thing is this, guys, you're wondering like, well, how do I pay them the 40 grand? And it's like, what if I don't have the 40 grand? You don't need it. You can just go get another lender at 40 grand. And then now you don't owe 95, you just owe someone else 40 and you're good. And you just increase your equity by whatever the difference was. And it's like something unlocked in my brain then. And Marlon, this is something I want to chat with you about this week. We just haven't had a chance to. I'm dead set, man. I had this talk with Sasha today, one of my partners in my dispositions business. Like, we'll still buy single family. Single family just doesn't move the needle. And here's the thing. In single family, are seller financing deals like the norm? No.
No.
There's the reality is when it comes to creative, there's more sub 2 opportunities than seller finance opportunities, right? By far. The funny thing though, guys, in creative financing, when it comes to multifamily, commercial real estate, like self-storage, owner financing is like the norm. It's normal. You either pay it off with like a new loan or you owner finance it. Like most of those owners who own a self-storage facility, they understand it. You're speaking their language. They would love to do owner financing and work out a note. And every 6 months, I could just go back to them and see if we can reduce it, right? Just reduce it. And so for that reason, I've also realized that, dude, for me, funny enough, Simon, you're mentioning Alex. Yeah, Alex has an amazing reel about it. I text Alex today and I'm like, bro, let's do a self-storage deal together. Like, I'll bring you whatever you need. Like, let's get it done. Because like, I just want to get into bigger ball games that are safer for me, safer for the investors, safer for everybody involved. And so love sub 2. No equity deals are fine. At the end of the day, when I get to a point, right? Let's be honest here, guys. Is there an avatar that is perfect for like no equity, sub 2 deals, right? You're taking a risk on cash flow. There's people that we all know, right?
Yeah.
Who buy little to no equity, sub 2 deals. Let's just say no equity. They put other people's money in it, which is risk upon risk. Okay. And then those deals may break even as a long-term rental. We know people who buy these types of deals. is there a common denominator for the ones who can sustain that?
Yeah, they're making a ton of active income somewhere else. They're doing something to earn a lot of money. And the reason they're buying property is depreciation today and eventual cash flow in the future.
That's literally it. That is, guys, I would even say that the eventual cash flow later down the road, I think for most of those guys, as soon as they can escape the IRS, recapture, like the reality is they're going to try to sell just because they want the depreciation. I think the one commonality with all those guys is they're all making 8 figures plus a year, right? And so for them, I'm like, it makes sense. We make good money. I think all 3 of us make like really good money overall. And we're still like, no, we should be a little bit safer right now. We should hedge our bets. We're seeing people around us, guys. I actually want to give you guys props because we've been friends for so long now. We came up with a cohort of young guys and young folks we kind of got into the same community at the same time as how we all connected. You guys know this. There's other young guys and young gals who came up alongside us and they're getting washed out because they rushed into bad deals, because they made a bunch of bad business decisions, right? They're being caught with like owing people a ton of money and like they're trying to file bankruptcy and this, that, and the other. But you guys, for the most part, have like played this smart game and you've been smart along the way. So I want to commend you guys for doing that.
I laugh because I'm like, I don't know if I've been smart along the way. Definitely been lucky, but for sure playing the right game and like, made my fair share of mistakes. But no, I definitely appreciate that. I agree with you. And also to answer Brandon's question, because I just see it over here on the side, he asked, do we use cost segregation for active income? Brandon, I haven't had to yet. I haven't had a year where I made so much money that it made sense to do it on the properties. And I have had enough of a portfolio and enough properties at enough of a price point. My portfolio is large enough to offset what I have had coming in as active income. So I haven't had the use for it yet, which is kind of a sad thing. So that means I need to make more money so I can see what it's like to do cost segregation and essentially capture upfront a lot more of the depreciation in a single year.
What is cost segregation for those who are listening, Marlon?
It's basically I'm going to give the quick answer to it. It's capturing multiple years of depreciation in one single tax year. So it would be capturing it would be me buying a property, and instead of using the next 27 and a half years, or I believe it's 29 with residential properties, it's all the way around 27 and a half with residential properties. Instead of me spreading it out over the next 27 and a half and like waiting and taking chunks at a time, I would take and capture 5 years all in one. Let's say this year, 2024, I make a ton of money in my flipping business and I need to offset more income. I will go to one of my properties and I will use 5 years of depreciation in 2024. And I'm just going to use it up front.
Nice.
Yep. And then the cost segregation study is like the tool. It's a mechanical tool that needs to be done. It's like there's like an appraisal and all this stuff that happens that basically validates that to happening. So cost segs are important. It's funny enough, we needed to cost seg last year and we just didn't. We totally didn't. I was so in the trenches and we got wrecked. I'm wrecked on taxes for last year. So it's like much more of a pertinent issue this year because we're scaling so much. So like now, from now on, like, dude, depreciation matters so much. AJ asks, are wholesaling and flipping the 2 main active income skill sets? No. I mean, I would say in terms of real estate, there's the big 3, right? There's wholesale, fix and flip, and then buying and hold, right? And each of them has like a million different subcategories. So in that regard, yes, in the world of real estate, those are the 2. But the reality is it could be anything. It could be anything that you do to generate money in the short-term period where you are trading time or a skill set for money coming into your life, right? So if you are a coach and who does coaching, if you are an athlete and you're a pro athlete and you make money because you play football for a living, right? These are all active incomes. In the real estate space, yes, flipping and wholesaling are going to be the 2 main ones.
Yeah. Now, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I was out in Virginia and I met a woman she's a brand new investor, just got into it. She's a world-class surgeon and she's making between $200,000 and $300,000 a year. Do you think I suggested to her that she start wholesaling? Hell no. Right? Like I told her, I was like, real talk, like you need to be looking at lending. You need to look at owning properties to offset your active income. And you should be looking at more syndication deals because you love your job. You have zero intention on walking away from the work that you do. Like she loves what she does. I was like, you do not need to go and create another job. You don't need to create another business. What you need to do is protect the money you're earning and allow yourself to create retirement for when you decide you want to stop working.
Would it be helpful? Because you just reminded me of someone that I absolutely admire. Her name is Christine LeBounty. She's one of the greatest agents.
Oh, she's fire, dude.
Dude, she's amazing. Christine LeBounty, for anyone who doesn't know her, she's freaking famous. She has like a TV show in San Diego. She's one of the best agents in California, one of the best agents in San Diego as well. And that's a really tough market to be a really good, thriving agent. And she comes into one of the communities that we're in. That's how I actually meet her. I met her at a mastermind event, and she's like, I make a ton of money. And like, she and I eventually talked. I found out how much money she makes, and she makes a ton of money, right? And she was like relatively new. Like, she's an agent, but she's not super accustomed to buying a ton of properties. And for her, it was actually more pertinent for her to almost skip single family. She wouldn't get the amount, like the depreciation, the benefits that she would need in the single family space. It actually makes more sense for her to just start investing in bigger deals, bigger asset classes. So that's a really kind of interesting thing. If you guys want us to, guys, do you think it'd be like cool for us to do an episode breaking down like single family and its benefits and who should do it versus, multifamily, but also like things that people don't talk about enough of, in my opinion, like self-storage.
That'd be dope.
Talk about different asset classes,
especially self-storage.
Dude, okay, I think if the people want us to do that, I think that'd be a fantastic use of time. So, guys, the reality is this: everyone should buy property, but you shouldn't rush into things that you're not ready for. And I think right now there is a danger in social media and the world of media, just in general, telling you that real estate is the path to financial freedom, is the path to all of that. And I agree with that to a degree, but only if you're ready for it. And I think social media is only going to tell you the highlights. It's only going to tell you when things go right. And very often the people that tell you that things are going right are also owing people a ton of money and not making payments on the back end, right? And so what I want you guys to do, real estate and entrepreneurship at its core is risk tolerance. I was with Jerry Norton a couple weeks ago, and I was talking to him just about getting to know him. We spoke on stage together at an event. It was an amazing time. And I was getting to just get to know him more one-on-one. And his whole thing with me is like, Sam, I'm just working on increasing my risk tolerance so I can take bigger swings, so I can have bigger at-bats. And so what I want you guys to understand is that when you start buying rentals, it's not just like the filling of the house. It's not just the maintenance. It's also the fact that you may not know what you're doing, and you may not get the right insurance coverage, and you may screw up on some paperwork, and XYZ millions of things can go wrong. And I'm not saying this to scare you away from buying rentals. I just want you to pay down your ignorance debt. So when those things happen, you're prepared, you're equipped, you can handle the liability. Because I want, just like Marlon's point, I want everyone who ever consumes anything that we do to absolutely thrive in real estate. I don't want anyone to ever be shortchanged. I don't want anyone to ever fail. And God forbid, I don't want any of you guys to end up on that tired landlord list that other investors market to, because those guys all sucked at running properties. So, guys, we're running up on time here.
Yeah, we are over on time. So that means we are going to be back here next week for another episode. Guys, do me a favor. Let's start to wrap this up. And the way we're going to wrap this up is, first off, I want to thank everyone in the audience for showing up. Shout out to Brandon. Shout out to Ale. Shout out to Karen. Shout out to AJ and Simon and all the people who've been commenting. Shout out to the folks that were on Instagram. We were streaming to Instagram here tonight. Also, what up, Josh? Good seeing you. And if you got value from tonight, this is how you can help the podcast out. People have been asking, how do they help the podcast out? How do they help us out? What can they do? And what you can do to truly help us, we're actively wanting to grow this platform. We want to grow this message, reach more people, and provide the sort of information that normally is behind a paywall. We want to give it away for free. And the way we give it away is by you guys sharing the podcast actively sharing the podcast with a friend, actively going to your Instagram and going to your Facebook and going to your TikToks and your LinkedIns and all the places that you hang out online and saying, yo, guys, tonight I just watched this episode. Like, if you hung out with us for the last 50 minutes, clearly you thought this was valuable. Share the value with somebody else. Do not hog the value to yourself. One of my favorite things about Alejandro, one of my favorite things about Sam is when they find something that's valuable, they pick up the phone and they text me, they call me, and they're like, check this out, watch this video, listen to this guy. They don't just try to hog the opportunity to themselves. They actively share the opportunity. We need you doing that here tonight, not tomorrow, not next week, not next month when you think about it. Doing it right now while you're listening to the sound of my voice. That is how you show thanks. That is how you keep this thing going. That's how you can help us. So that's my ask tonight. I appreciate you all. We'll be back next week for episode 89 of the Think Big podcast. You definitely do not want to miss next week's episode because I think we got something. We got it in our group chat. We're storming up something big for next week's episode. So be here, 5 o'clock Eastern.